Yahoo Sports Fantasy Football Live is presented by Ram Trucks and by the Callisto Protocol.
Hello, and welcome to the Fantasy Playoffs. We have 4 games in the books, but still plenty of key decisions to make on your path to a fantasy championship. This is Fantasy Football Live. I'm Andy Behrens in the frozen Midwest. I am joined by paid spokesperson for Big Reception, Matt Harmon in Los Angeles, and the internet's foremost Russell Wilson impersonator, Tank Williams in San Francisco. Guys, we're already knee-deep in week 16, in week 15 here. What are you watching today? What do you need? Tank, let's start with you.
I'm going to tell you what I'm watching, even though he's not going to be in my lineup. Zach Wilson, there's no way you can't take your eyes off of this. Mike White comes in, the whole team is wearing T-shirts, and now Zach Wilson, everybody was talking about Mike White had the layup against the Chicago Bears, but now Zach Wilson against the Detroit Lions. I understand that they're playing better ball, but this is a perfect matchup for him to bounce back. But the thing is this, the way that you attack that Detroit Lions defense, especially in the pass game, is where? In the slot. He avoided Elijah Moore like the plague, so I'm interested to see how that dynamic is going to play out. And then also, everybody that's been riding Garrett Wilson like Seabiscuit into the playoffs, what is my boy going to give you now that Zach Wilson's back at the helm? Oh, yeah, it's going to be interesting. Get your popcorn ready.
Something. I need something. How about you, Matt?
Well, I mean, listen, would it be nice if Greg Dulcich did something so that I could feel better about this Dawson Knox, Greg Dulcich tandem that I can't get right on any single week? Would it be nice if Mike Evans would do something so that I could feel better about that draft pick and potentially get some breathing room for my bet with Dalton Del Don about him versus Gabe Davis? Yeah, that'd be great. But for me, my playoff teams pretty much all have Josh Allen. They've got Christian McCaffrey. They have Tyler Lockett. We'll see about that in the future. But listen, for me, I've got big leads. I feel like I can kind of relax on this Sunday, okay? I feel like I'm going to have a nice, stress-free, comforting Sunday. We should do Thursday games. We should do Saturday games. It's great because now I feel like I don't need to watch this too closely. I don't need to stress too much about it. I'm feeling pretty good.
Oh, yeah. What could possibly go wrong? Hear me out for a second. Maybe there's not going to be a winner in the Mike Evans versus Gabe Davis bet.
We're all losing.
If I need anything this week, it's probably for Houston's Chris Moore to maybe do the thing again where he gives us 124 yards and 10 catches. That was awesome. He's at the very least my highest ranked Moore this week. I need a little something from him. Let's get a look. Let's not worry about my fantasy problems. Let's take a look at the latest injury information. The Steelers host Carolina in the early slate today, and a few developments here as Mitch Trubisky will get the start with Kenny Pickett ruled out with a concussion. Carolina will have DJ Moore despite a limited practice on Friday. More on the Panthers wideout a little later in the show. The Patriots backfield is a little banged up. Damian Harris already ruled out, but Ramondre Stevenson is considered a game-time decision against the Raiders. NFL Network's Ian Rappaport says the second-year running back has a good chance to suit up, however. Pats receiver Jacoby Myers also expected to return from his concussion today. In that same game, injury report mainstay, I think you've seen him here 3 or 4 weeks in a row, Josh Jacobs has a questionable tag with a hand injury. The Raiders plan to have him in there with a possible cast on that injured pinky. Cincinnati should have both T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd today. Higgins was limited to just 1 snap in Week 14. He has a hamstring injury. Boyd, of course, dealing with a hand issue as well. We want to invite you to a special holiday edition of Fantasy Football Live. Our Week 16 show is moving to primetime. Please join us this Thursday, December 22nd at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. We'll preview Jets-Jaguars on Thursday Night Football and get you set for your fantasy semifinals and the whole Week 16 slate. Set your reminders, get your ugly sweater out, and join us this Thursday. All right, as you know by now, there are plenty of ways to reach us. You can send your questions on Twitter using the hashtag AskFFL or toss a question in the chat. We'll answer as many as we can. Scott Pianowski is chugging eggnog and answering questions all morning long live on Twitter.
All right, let's go. It's time to return to the flex position. and our Built to Serve picks brought to you by Ram Trucks. They're redefining what a truck can be and do every day with plenty of power, capability, and durability. Each week, we're picking players that align with these quality traits that can lead your fantasy lineup into a winning position. So, Tank, who is looking capable this week?
Yeah, my man, Reverend Barron's already mentioned his name. I'm going with Chris Moore. He's definitely capable. Can we get it 2 weeks in a row? As he mentioned, he had 10 receptions, 124 yards against the Dallas Cowboys last week. Again, we have no Brandon Cooks. We have no Nico Collins. And now we have the Kansas City defense that gives up the 4th most fantasy points to wide receivers. And so I feel like this may not be the game where we saw Davis Mills and Jeff Driscoll having all this wild success against the Cowboys defense that looked like they were playing sleep half the time. I expect Kansas City to come out and try to right the ship after playing a close game with Denver. But I think the amount of targets and the yardage that he should get, whether it's in the regular part of the game or the garbage time part of the game, should be sufficient. I think he'll be plenty capable today against the Kansas City Chiefs.
Can't believe it's week 15, it's first week of the fantasy playoffs, and you two sickos are out here talking about Chris Moore. What could possibly go wrong? Hey, Tank, you played in the National Football League. That's pretty cool. Let me ask you a question. Is it good to have your top 2 wide receivers on the field and healthy playing at the same time? Is that a good thing?
Absolutely.
Great analysis. Very concise. Appreciate that. Yes, it is a good thing. And we saw that with the Los Angeles Chargers last week. Hey, turns out your quarterback can be great statistically. Things can look awesome when Mike Williams and Keenan are out there at the same time, man. And Mike Williams especially is so important, I think, this week. Look, Mike Williams, he's my durability pick because as long as he's durable, as long as he can go from the first snap to the last snap, I think he's going to absolutely crush it this week. No quarterback has dropped back more this year than Justin Herbert. He's the only quarterback to go over 600 dropbacks this year heading into week 15. What a perfect matchup against your former Tennessee Titans there, Tank Williams, because look, the Titans have this great run defense and teams are pretty much just like, okay, we're giving up. We're not running against you anymore. So since week 10, the Titans allow the 2nd most passing yards, the 4th highest passer rating, and now they're going against Mike Williams and the Chargers offense. All they want to do is throw the ball. They don't even want to run the ball either. So, perfect matchup. I think Mike Williams, I know he's volatile when he plays. I think this is going to be one of his boom weeks. Over 10 targets, over 100 yards. As long as he's durable, he should be great in your lineup this week.
Agreed. And with my power pick, I'm going with Brian Robinson. Teams are averaging 180 rush yards per game against the New York Giants over the past 4 games. Yeah, you heard that right. Over 180 rush yards per game. Like, I don't expect the Washington Commanders to get cute in this one. I don't know how they lost the game against the Giants. Well, tied the game against the Giants a couple of weeks ago. I expect B-Rob's volume to be as large as those big hats he wears in the locker room. Washington is the better team. Washington should win this game, which means that Robinson should get his hits and a lot of volume and a lot of yardage and a lot of touchdowns versus the New York G-Men.
Yeah, for full transparency for the viewer, Tank powered his way into the show doc before me and picked Brian Robinson because I was definitely going to pick him and try to manifest that one. I'm with you, Tank. He's on all of my playoff teams. I hope you are correct about this one. All right. Don't miss the layups here, B-Rob. We would love that. All right, get those guys into your lineup and be sure to check out the entire game-changing Ram lineup at ram.com.
All right, we are very pleased to be joined this week by Frank Schwab, Yahoo Sports betting expert, NFL expert, high motor writer, and podcaster. He's a Wisconsin Badgers fan, but hey, no one lives a perfect life. Today, we're focused on quarterbacks, specifically guys that we may have streamed or added in season for the fantasy playoffs. But first, Frank, I have to ask about a guy we just watched last night, and that's Tua Tagovailoa. He had basically, I don't know, like it feels like a minute ago that he was part of the MVP conversation, and then we wrote him off a couple weeks ago after a couple of rough games, but not too bad last night. What are we doing with him, and how do we feel about him rest of season?
You know, I think if you've ridden him this far, you keep riding Tua Tagovailoa. I think he's a good quarterback who's got great receivers around him. He's going to put up numbers. Look, the Jalen Waddle play last night. You get the ball to that guy, he runs for 67 yards and a touchdown. The points count the same. It doesn't matter if he's just living off of his great receivers. So I think he's just fine. Tua's a good player. He's not great. He's not elite. He's not an MVP. but he'll still put up points for you. Look, this has been a tough road trip for Miami. I think they're going to be just fine offensively. Mike McDaniel made some adjustments last night to get his guys open against his press coverage. I really like Tua going forward. I think he's going to be just fine for people down the stretch.
Frank, Brock Purdy has been one of the wildest and most entertaining stories of the past 3 weeks. He's another guy with great receivers to work with. He's also producing numbers at basically the same rate that Jimmy Garoppolo was. He's 2 touchdowns and 200 yards per week. How do we feel about him going forward? He's actually available right now in about 80% of Yahoo leagues.
I mean, at some point, I just have to stop questioning this. It's a thing. And you know how many rookie quarterbacks, have ever started in a Super Bowl? The answer is 0. Are we really expecting Mr. Irrelevant to do it this year? Maybe, I guess. I keep betting against him every week, and he keeps covering spreads. I think Brock Purdy is going to do just what he's done. He can get the ball to these guys. Kyle Shanahan, look, he loved Kirk Cousins, right? We've all known about that. He loved Kirk. Why did he love Kirk Cousins? Because Kirk Cousins is basically a robot that can run his offense. Now, can Brock Purdy do the same thing? I think the answer is yes. We've seen him just make the right throws, get the ball to the open guy. He played well on Thursday night, even without Deebo Samuel in the lineup. I think at some point you just got to let go what you thought about Brock Purdy coming in and just trust him down the stretch. And maybe even next year, that's going to be the interesting thing. What do they do with Trey Lance? What if Brock Purdy does take him deep in the playoffs? What if they do win out? That's the interesting thing. His keeper prospects maybe, but for right now, I think you just have to throw up your hands and trust this guy that this is going to keep going.
Let's talk about Aaron Rodgers, too. Aaron Rodgers available right now in a handful of Yahoo leagues at the very least. He's a little bit banged up, but suddenly his receivers are not. Are we in for a late season Rodgers surge?
I think we are. You look at the next couple weeks. Look, if you're in the playoffs, you probably have a pretty good quarterback, but what if you have a Lamar Jackson situation, something like that, or 2-quarterback league? I think you can look at Rodgers the rest of the way. They play at Miami next week. Look, Miami does not have a good pass defense. We know that. We saw it last night against Josh Allen. Good weather there, too. Then they play the Minnesota Vikings at home. We all know the Vikings can't stop anybody unless they're down 33 points, I guess. The Vikings give up yards in bunches. I think Rodgers can finish this season really strong. We've seen Christian Watson come along. That's been huge for the offense. And I think Rodgers has played pretty well this year. Not great, not the MVP we're used to, not the top 5 fantasy quarterback we're used to. But right now, I think he can have that late season surge and maybe even help you next year because his price will be very, very low, especially in those 2-quarterback leagues. You can get him cheap, but I think Aaron Rodgers has a pretty decent season next year with these rookie receivers having another year of experience under him.
All right, last name for you. Talk to me about Trevor Lawrence. He looked like an absolute star last week. He looked like a #1 pick in the draft, but he's got a tough matchup here against Dallas. How do we feel about Trevor rest of season?
Yeah, and he's played great for about 6 weeks now, actually. He's really looked like that dude, but you get Dallas this week, you get the Jets next week. Look, if he could survive that, he does have Houston in week 17. That's a banger for him. He's going to go off in that game. But I think that he's just a very, very good player, and I think this is legit. I think he keeps this going. I think he's going to be one of those guys that everybody drafts next year. But for the playoffs, for this week, for next week, hopefully you got a better option. I don't think Lawrence is going to blow up necessarily. I don't think he's matchup proof yet. You just hope he can get to that week 17 where he gets Houston and can go for the 5 touchdowns against a defense that can't stop anybody.
Thank you, Frank. You're the greatest. Thanks for joining us. Follow him on Twitter at Yahoo Schwab. We appreciate you, Frank.
Thank you.
Fine. You people out there. You know the drill. This is Bring the Props. This is where we each discuss our favorite NFL prop bet of the week. Then we decide if we like the over or the under, and one of us just keeps blowing away the other two, but I won't name any names. I will get us started with the great Tank Williams. Tank, buddy, give us something, man.
Right?
God almighty.
Oh, man, yeah, it's been brutal. And this may be even worse. I'm going with Alvin Kamara, over 59.5 rush yards. I mean, they're going against the Atlanta Falcons. Man, if you look at his stat line the past, 3-4 weeks, man, it's been brutal. But I'm thinking that I'm buying the dip. I mean, somehow, some way, the New Orleans Saints are still in this for the NFC South title. And I feel like with the Saints being favored like -4.5 going into this game, the Falcons starting a rookie quarterback, the Saints should be able to play from a lead. Alvin Kamara is healthy. He should be able to get these yardage as they try to pound away a lead late in the game. So I understand that the stats don't really show that I should be feeling that bullish on this prop, but we will see. Harmon, are you bullish as well?
I mean, buddy, you and I got to go down with this thing together. I'm 100% with you. I think Kamara gets. I mean, he gets 50 yards against the damn Falcons. Give me a break. Yeah, I'm with you on this one, Tank.
Well, not that you asked, but I'm with you as well.
No one asked.
And this
one asked.
This was a line. This was a line that I actually looked at. I actually looked at taking this one, in part because I need it. I need it in my own fantasy portfolio. Somehow I've stumbled into the playoffs with Alvin Kamara in a handful of leagues, and I need a late season surge from him. This is a great spot for him. So yes, I think he can go over here.
Well, hopefully I jinx you,
right.
but he still gets it.
Yeah, that would be nice. At least some pain to Andy. Andy,
Right?
give us your prop, bro. What? The king, the reigning king here. Go ahead and give us your prop.
Let me guess, Justin Fields.
No, we're not going Justin Fields this week.
Adam
I have
Vinatieri,
decided
over
that
2.5 field goals.
If you guys are going to come back on me, it seems like a slim chance of it, but if you guys are going to come back on me, you're going to have to do it by picking against Matt Harmon's favorite wide receivers. So I'm going to take over on Chris Olave receiving yards. It's 60.5. First of all, he's done this in 4 of 5. He's like the unrivaled air yards king on the season. He's got a great spot here against the 5th most generous pass defense in the league against Atlanta. So I think it's a great spot for him. I think he goes over. A couple of these recent games, he's gone over this total, but not by a lot. But then he's had a couple others where he's just absolutely smashed it. So I think this is a really good opportunity for him, and I think he goes well over. Matt,
I hate
do you
you,
agree?
Andy, because oh my God. Go ahead.
Going
Head
under.
shape.
We got to go under. Tank, we have to go under. We have to fade Andy on this one. And
How
look,
can I go
Dude.
under? Like, if you looked at the doc, I can't go under. Like, I'm hyping some folks coming up later in the show. I have Olave on my squads. Like, I need it too. Like, it's just dumb for me to go under. I hate Reverend. Ooh, I hate you so bad. Ooh.
well, I'll be brave here and perhaps cement myself for the 3rd place prize in this particular tournament. I will fade Andy. I will go under here. I have to differentiate. And look at it this way. Andy, my mom's fantasy team got Chris Olave. So if it works out and he goes over this total and he has a big game, at least my mother will be happy. By the way, Andy, there's some wild stuff going on in the Treviso Babes League. We will have to recap that on Monday on the podcast. But I will fade you here simply for the strategy of the game. And you are disgusting for making me fade some of my favorite players here. That is horrible. I'll deliver my prop here, and somehow, of all the games available, of all the divisions out there, we have decided to go completely Falcons Saints in this prop section here. What is wrong with us? I'm taking the over on Drake London, another rookie favorite of mine, 39.5 receiving yards. I am hoping I can bait Andy, the king of reasonableness, into fading this prop because, look, Andy, it's the Falcons offense. Nobody runs the ball at a higher rate. Nobody throws the ball at a lower rate than the Atlanta Falcons, right? I mean, come on. Let's ignore the fact that they're changing quarterbacks and they're getting out of the Marcus Mariota business, the most inaccurate starting quarterback by the numbers in the NFL. Ignore that, Andy. Let's just not think about the fact that Drake London's coming off 12 targets the game before the bye, a 50% target share. Let's not think about any of this stuff. Andy, it's the Falcons offense. You have to take the under on this, right?
I'm actually tempted to take the under, but I'm not going to do it. I just believe in the players coming off like a dozen targets. I don't think it can get worse. I mean, that's a dreadful thing to say because one thing that we learn year after year, it can always get worse. It definitely can get worse, but
It's getting worse.
Mariota was so sketchy for so long. I don't think it can get worse with Desmond Ridder. And this is such a simple lift, right? This is such an easy ask. 39 yards. He can do this on a couple of catches. So I am going to take the over.
Cool.
Yeah, and I
And
can't
what
fade you
about you?
either because, I can't fade you either. We know that Marshawn Lattimore isn't playing. And the one thing that's the kryptonite to the Atlanta Falcons defense to the New Orleans Saints defense when Marshawn Lattimore isn't playing is a guy named Mike Evans. Mike Evans hasn't been balling, but this is a younger, faster, more athletic Mike Evans. And I think with Desmond Ridder throwing the ball, that Atlanta Falcons pass game should be a little bit more competent. So, I'm going over as well. This should be a layup. Should be.
Well, that didn't work out for me. Let's take a look at the standings where next week I will be in third place because I faded Chris Olave like a complete idiot. So let's just not get used to me here in the middle. I will be where Tank is next week.
Thought you were an Olave, bro. Apparently not. Apparently no. Apparently a hater.
Horrible.
All right, it's time for our first break on Fantasy Football Live. Tank is ready to win you some money in daily this week. His ballers on a budget are coming up.
At least that's still good.
You want your sports news in more than just a few characters? With the help of a bunch of different characters?
You play better than me, I respect this shit like you.
He beat us, yes. I'm not a ball player. Prince had hops.
Hosted by everyone's favorite character.
Only time will tell if that's a lie or a big-ass lie.
You're Calais Campbell's brother, so Calais got the most sacks that he has is on me.
Give us 2 minutes and we'll give you The Rush. Weekday mornings on Yahoo Sports.
Welcome to Mad Bets, everyone. I am Minty Beth alongside Jared Quay, Pam Maldonado. I'm Ariel Epstein.
We've got a big Sunday night football game.
It's time for some Monday Night Football. Jared, let's kick things off with you. What's your best bet this week?
Oh, I love my bet with 5-star confidence.
Ariel, you can call it a homer pick if you want. It's not.
By the way, that probably will be in Prop Queen coming up on Sunday.
I'm gonna be busting these babies out this weekend.
Woo! You did that with your winning bets, huh? You've been on fire. That's what you buying with your winnings?
Oh man, I love it.
We are back on Fantasy Football Live. Lots of difficult decisions to make for your rosters in Week 15. So let's figure out how to survive the day, presented by the Callisto Protocol. Each week, we're looking at one game and picking players we think will most help fantasy managers. Let's target this Bears-Eagles matchup. Tank, who are you looking at here?
I'm going with Miles Sanders. If you recall, last week I told you that he was a ball on the budget and all he gave you was 17 carries, 144 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And now he has another magically delicious matchup against the Chicago Bears. They give up the 4th most running back fantasy points. The trend is usually your friend, and I would expect the Philadelphia Eagles to ride Miles Sanders once again, going up against the Chicago Bears. So make sure you get him plugged into your lineup for the fantasy playoffs. I promise you, he won't disappoint.
All right, you guys both took Philadelphia Eagles here. I'm gonna be the one person brave enough to talk up a Chicago Bear, and I'm gonna mention Cole Kmet, tight end. Listen, he's like basically the #1 receiver for this team at this point. Darnell Mooney done for the year. Chase Claypool, he's out in this one. Kmet actually in 4 of his last 5 games has seen at least 6 targets. He has 4 touchdowns during that stretch. I'm not trying to tell you this is some great matchup. Philadelphia's defense is good in all aspects. They're good against the pass, but just on volume alone, Kmet is going to have to make a little bit of noise here. It stands to figure, and listen, we make all kinds of mistakes when we try to guess at game flow, but the Bears are probably going to fall behind in this one, and they're probably going to have to chuck the ball. And if that happens, Cole Kmet is in for a huge target total and potentially a big week. Matt, who do you like here?
Andy, I would have just been dying to pick the 34th overall pick in the 2023 NFL Draft, Chase Claypool. I would have been just dying to pick him, but unfortunately he's hurt. That's the only thing that's gone wrong with that trade. The only thing is this recent injury. But instead, I must pick an actually good wide receiver here. I'm going to go with Devontae Smith. And watch your feet, guys, because I'm about to commit an egregious name drop. But when I talked to A.J. Brown this past week, he agreed with me that
Okay.
the Eagles don't have a number 1, number 2 wide receiver duo. They have a 1A, 1B situation going there for the Philadelphia Eagles, and that's just because Devontae Smith, it might not appear in the stats, whatever. Who cares? This guy is a straight baller. He is a legit number 1 wide receiver. He actually leads the team in air yard share with 39% and target share at 29% since week 11, which is important because that is the first game that Dallas Goedert missed when he went on IR. Dallas Goedert was not activated for this game, despite fantasy managers hoping for that. So I think we still see a lot of Devontae Smith in this matchup. He can get it done in the short game. He can get it done in the long game. Just a real quality player on the tidiest offense in the NFL. We know exactly where the ball's going in Philly, and I think Smith gets a lot this week.
Feels like a great call. Okay, be sure to explore the depths of fear in the all-new story-driven survival horror game, The Callisto Protocol, available now on PlayStation, Xbox, and PC.
What it do, baby? It's your boy T-Money with my Week 15 Ballers on a Budget. And if you haven't had enough NFC South players banging you in the head already, and here we go. Andy Dalton versus the Atlanta Falcons. He's $23. Yes, hello Ginger Fist, our old friend. We love to see you. Atlanta defense gives up the ninth most fantasy points to quarterbacks. Man, the NFC South is wide open. Somehow, some way, the Saints are still in it. I feel like he should be able to throw it around the yard. To who? We already talked about this guy, Chris Olave, and others. This should be a good matchup for the New Orleans Saints and for Andy Dalton. So, man, if the bearded ginger snap doesn't get it done today, I don't know when he will. At running back, I'm going with Isaiah Pacheco at Houston. He's $21. I have to fill my weekly quota of talking about Isaiah Pacheco. I mean, this is the layup of all matchups. He's going against the Houston Texans defense that gives up the most fantasy points to running backs. And I understand Jerick McKinnon got off last week, but I believe that this game should set up more for Pacheco. I think that Kansas City will probably come out with their hair on fire, try to play from a big lead, which means that he's going to get a lot of volume down the stretch. I wouldn't be surprised if he falls into the end zone a couple of times. This could be his blow-up spot. At wide receiver, I'm going with Zay Jones. He's $14. They have the Dallas Cowboys. Trevor and the Sunshine Band are heating up, and my man Zay Jones has been on fire. 21 receptions, 238 yards in a tub in the last 3 weeks. And the one thing that stands out to me is this. Michael Parsons at the beginning of this week was talking about Jalen Hurts. It seems like the Cowboys already got their mind on the Philadelphia Eagles when the Jacksonville Jaguars are actually heating up and have an opportunity to play for the AFC South. So I feel like this is going to be a game right here. I expect Trevor Lawrence to possibly keep it going against a Dallas Cowboys defense that can give up some big plays here and there. Zay Jones should be the main beneficiary of that on the outside. I really like him at this spot at $14. And that tight end, I'm going with Gerald Everett. He's $16. They're going against the Tennessee Titans. We're already talking about how the Titans have been getting honey roasted in the secondary. Teams aren't trying to run against them. They're just going to throw. And why not? You see what Evan Ingram did the other week. 11 receptions, 162 yards, and 2 tubs. I'm not saying that my man Gerald Everett is going to replicate that, but he should have himself a good game with my man Trevor Lawrence. Touchdown Jesus, throwing the ball all around the yard today. So remember, the T is for the money, and the money is something that you will not have in your wallet if you do not get these players in your lineup. And so now it's time for our little fantasy face-off. So I'm going to go ahead and throw it over to the man with the best hair in the business, Matty Harmon.
Oh, well, I appreciate that, man. What a good guy. See, at least you and I are on good terms. Unfortunately, I have to share the screen with this deplorable man, Andy Behrens. But we are trying to help you people out there, okay? This is Fantasy Face-Off. This is where we take one of the hottest players, one of the biggest pickups of the week, and put him against some established starters. Andy, we're talking about Zonovan Bam Knight. Unfortunately, the lead back of a Zach Wilson-led offense, which I think is going to change our calculations perhaps a little bit here. But let's pit him up against Ezekiel Elliott first. Who do we like better? Zonovan Knight, the lead back of a Zach Wilson offense, as I just mentioned, or Tony Pollard's second fiddle there in Dallas?
Yeah, I gotta say, I had to perform some new calculations after the Mike White to Zach Wilson move. Generally speaking, you know, sometimes people in fantasy will be like, oh, that's got to be good for the running back if we don't like the quarterback. No, if the quarterback is bad, it's bad for the entire offense, and that's not a good thing. And then you look at Knight's matchup. You want to say that Detroit is a favorable matchup, but they actually haven't given up more than 80 total yards to any running back since week 7. Zeke Elliott is a, yes, he's kind of second fiddle to Tony Pollard right now, but he's still seeing 16 to 18 touches per week. The run is going to be in play basically all day. The man has scored like 5 touchdowns since returning from injury 4 weeks ago. So I would just give Zeke a better chance of finding the end zone. So I'm going to go Zeke Elliott here.
Yeah, we're on the same page here. There's a reason that you get laughed out of the room if you suggest any position other than quarterback for MVP. It kind of has a big trickle-down effect on everybody else in the offense. Next guy up here, another old favorite, James Conner. This is sort of a similar situation where it's like, man, James Conner is playing every single snap for the Arizona Cardinals, Andy, but it's the Colt McCoy, Cliff Kingsbury offense, which I think is not a good thing for the Cardinals, I think. Which way are we going here?
Yeah, he's also facing a pretty stingy Denver defense. Like, for all the hilarity in Denver, for all the things that have gone wrong, that defense has been fine. They are not the problem. So don't really like the matchup for Conner, but as you say, he almost literally never comes off the field. You look at the snap totals, and he's playing like 90-95% of the snaps week in and week out. And still, I think I'm gonna go Zonovan Knight here. I will say, like, one point in his favor, he is making guys miss. He's second in the league over the last 3 weeks in terms of missed tackles. So I think he's just got a little bit more elusiveness to his game. I would give him the better shot of finding the end zone at the very least. So, which seems crazy given the number of touchdowns that Conner scored last year. But I want to stay away from that Denver-Arizona game entirely.
Yeah, I would love to do that too. I think I'm going James Conner here on this one. It's very, very close for me, but the Zach Wilson factor really has me spooked here. So I'm gonna go with James Conner. It's crazy where I'm like, yeah, give me Colt McCoy over James Conner, over Zach Wilson by a lot. All right, last one up here, Zonovan Knight versus Najee Harris. I feel like Najee's season is just kind of stabilized into that, yeah, whatever. You gotta rank him like running back 19, running back 20 on the week, whatever. Is that higher than Bam Knight for you, Andy?
Oh, yeah. So we got a running back tied to a Mitch Trubisky offense, or we got a running back tied to a Zach Wilson offense. Which direction do we go? Najee just hasn't, like, we haven't seen some big blow-up explosive week from Najee. He doesn't have 100 yards in any game. He has been finding the end zone. That's been happening. But he's obviously playing through some stuff. He's no longer the guy who's like 85% of the snaps, 90% of the snaps. Now he comes on and off the field. So this is another case where I think just the slightest lean for me to Zonovan Knight.
Yeah, I'm going Zonovan Knight with you on this one. And by the way, Andy, Zach Wilson wishes he was Mitch Trubisky level good, which is, I mean, that's saying something. Apparently Mitch is on a short leash, might get pulled for Mason Rudolph. Give me a break. All right, Andy, let's help the people more out there in our play calling section. And of course, bring Tank Williams back into the fold here for some reasonableness.
Yeah, we're going to do a little play calling. This is where we take your Twitter questions. We're going to start with this one here from Brandon. And my goodness, I wish I had Brandon's problems. You should see some of the garbage that I'm starting this week. But Brandon needs either DeAndre Hopkins or Tony Pollard. Has to sit one of them in a flex spot. Matt, I'll send it right to you. Who are you sitting here?
Yeah, I think I'm going to sit DeAndre Hopkins in this one. Look, Tony Pollard has just been so good, and I feel like this running back duo there, Tony Pollard, Ezekiel Elliott, like we mentioned, this is like kind of the identity of the offense right now. They're not just getting like good grinded out yards, touchdown chances, stuff like that. They're getting big plays out of these running backs at this point. So I trust Tony Pollard more than I trust DeAndre Hopkins catching passes from Colt McCoy against a tough secondary, as you mentioned earlier.
All right, this next question, I love it. This is a little bit of my specialty, so I'll take this one. It's Duran asking, I need my tight end spot sorted out. Greg Dulcich or Jeff Driscoll? Okay, here's the drill with Jeff Driscoll, and he may come up again later in the show, but he's like a part-time quarterback for Houston. They're running him and Davis Mills on and off the field. Here's the thing, at the end of last season, they actually tried to make him a tight end. In fact, they did make him a tight end briefly, so he carries that position eligibility. It's a little bit of a cheat code, obviously, coming into this week. But you look at last week, the guy finished with like half a dozen carries, half a dozen pass attempts. had a passing touchdown. So I'm going to lean Jeff Driscoll here. It is really hard for most tight ends to actually outscore somebody who's probably going to put the ball in the air, 6 to 10 times a game while also getting some designed runs. So for me, this is going to be Jeff Driscoll. I know it's weird. Just roll with it. Let's take this one from Mike. Mike is asking Zonovan Knight, who we just discussed, or Chris Moore. It would sure help me if the correct answer was Chris Moore here. This is full PPR. Tank, I'll send this one to you. Who are you going with?
Man, yeah, this is interesting, and I hope I'm not jinxing Chris Moore, but I kind of like him here. I mean, expecting Kansas City to be playing from the lead, and I expect him to get peppered with targets. And when you look at Bam Knight, Zach Wilson is playing quarterback, so more than likely they're just going to stack the box and say, you're not going to run the ball on me. If you're going to win this game, you have to make that guy that you drafted number 2 overall beat us through the air. And so that's going to be the experience that we're going to be witnessing on TV today. So give me Chris Moore.
All right, let's take one more here from Toonsis. Toonsis asking Michael Gallup or Brian Robinson. I'll send this one to you, Matt. I can't imagine that you're benching Brian Robinson.
Let me wake myself up a little bit after my eyes were glazing over. Were you guys talking about Chris Moore and Jeff Driscoll? I mean, good God, the Houston Texans preseason roster over here. Yeah, no, Brian Robinson's the easy answer. The Giants defense, Wink Martindale, they live by the sword. They've been dying by the sword a lot more lately there, both as a pass defense and as a run defense. Since week 10, they allow over 5 yards per carry. Brian Robinson already cut him up a week before the bye. Look, Toons, it would help me too if it was Brian Robinson. So I think it's Brian Robinson. Let's go.
Just absolutely flagrant disrespect for the Houston Texans from Matt Harmon. That's going to send us to our next break here on Fantasy Football Live. Coming up, Tank and I tell you the players we've had quite enough of this season and are leaving off of our playoff rosters. Stick with us.
You want your sports news in more than just a few characters? With the help of a bunch of different characters?
You play better than me, I'll respect this like you.
He beat us, yes. I'm not a ball player. Prince had hops.
Hosted by everyone's favorite character.
Only time will tell if that's a lie or a big-ass lie.
You're Calais Campbell's brother, so Calais got the most sacks that he has is on me.
Give us 2 minutes and we'll give you The Rush. Weekday mornings on Yahoo Sports.
Welcome to Mad Bets, everyone. I am Minty Beth alongside Jared Quay, Pam Maldonado. I'm Ariel Epstein.
We've got a big Sunday night football game.
It's time for some Monday Night Football. Jared, let's kick things off with you. What's your best bet this week?
Oh, I love my bet with 5-star confidence.
Ariel, you can call it a homer pick if you want. It's not.
By the way, that probably will be in Prop Queen coming up on Sunday.
I'm gonna be busting these babies out this weekend.
Woo! You did that with your winning bets, huh? You've been on fire. That's what you're buying with your winnings?
Oh man, I love it.
Welcome back to Fantasy Football Live. Okay, enough already. We're going to simply take a moment here to rant about a few players that we're just over. Guys, we are not touching in the fantasy playoffs. Tank, who have you had quite enough of?
Yeah, enough already with Leonard Fournette. Sorry, like all the nicknames, they were fun for a little bit. We had Playoff Lenny, we had Super Bowl Lenny, we had Slim Lenny, but now it's finally arrived. Bench Lenny. Like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are the worst rushing team in the league. Like Rachaad White continues to get more involved in that offense, and trust me, you don't want to be involved with that offense, period. We saw what it looked like against the San Francisco 49ers. That's a good defense, I know, but it's looked terrible against almost every defense that they faced this year. The Bucs have looked bombed out and depleted. We reached a point to where many of those guys need to get put out the pasture. Maybe the GOAT included. Hate to say it, hate to see it, but yeah, Leonard Fournette, it's time to ride with Bench Lenny.
I got one that I just hate to say it, but I've had quite enough of DJ Moore. He is not even my highest ranked Moore among receivers this week. Listen,
Chris Moore, we just said that one more
5
time.
games.
Yeah.
Oh, I've got Chris Moore ahead of him. In fact, I had to sit down DJ Moore, break it to him that I'm starting both Chris Moore and like Richie James ahead of him this week. It's just been rough. You look at these last 2 games for Carolina. In each of them, they have 46 rush attempts. Like they have a 2-to-1 run to pass ratio right now. They're just not interested in throwing the ball, and it's working. They're winning games. For the last 5 games, DJ Moore has been held under 30 receiving yards. He's coming off a week in which he saw just 3 targets, and now he's playing through an ankle issue. I can't do it. I think he's a wonderful player. I think he's a huge talent. I cannot touch him in the fantasy playoffs. I feel terrible about it. All right, let's see what's cooking in the sports book now with Matt and Ariel.
Yeah, here we are. We are back in the sports book. It's very comfortable in here. AC's great. Love the temperature. The ambiance is fantastic. The company is even better. We got Ariel Epstein with us to go over some prime-time props. Ariel, huge Sunday night game against a couple of teams that have just played each other recently in Washington and New York. What do you got in this game?
The problem looking at for the Giants and Washington game would be the Washington running back Antonio Gibson to go over 36.5 rushing yards. Now, the reason I'm looking to pretty much RB2 is because Brian Robinson just had a big game for Washington the week before the bye where they played the Giants. There was one other situation, divisional rival against New York, the Dallas Cowboys. They faced the Giants twice this year already. In game 1, it was Tony Pollard that had a big game for Dallas. In game 2, it was Ezekiel Elliott. I have a feeling the Giants are going to do, or excuse me, Washington's going to do the same thing. Why stick to the same game plan with Brian Robinson if you have another running back that's running the football really well right now, Antonio Gibson? His numbers this year, even against the Giants, went over 36.5 a couple of weeks ago. Against Houston, the worst run defense in football, 18 carries for 72 yards. And pretty much against Green Bay, another one, bottom 5 run defense. Dallas, a bottom 10 run defense. Went over these numbers against all those bottom 10 run defenses. I like the matchup here for Gibson. Give him some more touches so that this Giants defense has some different looks aside for just Brian Robinson.
Yeah, and Washington's been one of the lowest neutral pass rate teams since they've changed to Taylor Heineke. So there's no reason Antonio Gibson can not go over a really, really low 36.5 yard line there. All right, much less entertaining and much less consequential game on Monday Night Football. Ariel, I see you have a Baker prop here. I can't wait to hear more flowers about the great Baker Mayfield. Hit us with this one.
I hear just some sarcasm in your voice. I just like to come on shows sometimes, Matt, and say to the fantasy football god here across from me that, hey, I could surprise you with something. And that's what I'm doing here with the Baker Mayfield rushing yards prop. We're going over 10.5 rushing yards for Baker. The Packers actually really struggle when they're up against mobile quarterbacks. And not that I'm saying he's necessarily mobile. However, we are talking about a quarterback that does scramble around in the pocket and sometimes gets out of it. Green Bay allowing the 3rd most rushing yards per game to quarterbacks. Jalen Hurts, Justin Fields, Josh Allen, even Daniel Jones. Like, they have gone all over the field against Green Bay. So if you're going to get a team that's going to make Baker have to stay in the pocket a little more, maybe he's going to have to scramble a bit. This Rams offense is completely banged up, but Baker has something to prove. He still is trying to fight for a quarterback job, and now he has his chance to do so. While anyone else in LA, maybe everyone else in Green Bay could care less about showing up on the field, Baker Mayfield is going to do what he needs to do to look like a good quarterback the way that he did last week. You can see him trying to do a bit too much with the football. I don't care. Just rush for over 10.5 yards, and it's something that he's done many times in his career.
Yeah, you know, Baker can certainly do that stupid little boot out of the pocket when it's a clean pocket move, boot to the right there, take half the field away, which is a super smart thing to do as a quarterback. And just on a couple of those plays, because he'll probably do it like, I don't know, 6 or 7 times this game, just get 5 yards in the first one, 5 yards on the second one, and you're
and then lose the game
there,
so you don't take knees. Lose the game so you don't take knees. Perfect.
Perfect, even better. I think that is all well within the range of outcomes. And honestly, I'm just really proud of you for your bravery for even picking a Rams player there. I would have just left that alone entirely. But again,
do anything. Who else is proving anything on this team? Come on.
Not a Tutu Atwell fan? I take it. That's questionable.
I like him.
All right.
I've had him a few weeks in a row. He's good. He's good for over receiving yards. But listen, this is the one that stood out to me because I don't mess with wide receivers when I bet props because there's too many of them. I don't have the playbook, so I mean, at least you know if a defense is bad against tight ends, if they're bad against running backs. You really are lessening your sample size there because there's only about 1 to 2 of those that are going to get touches per position, and then the quarterbacks, of course. But yeah, I don't do wide receivers. I don't mess with them.
That's some piece of advice that I could probably use in my own life. But we'll move on here. We'll get your best bet of the week, Ariel. Who you got here?
I like the Tennessee Titans taking the points against the Chargers. It's weird that this line hasn't moved at all. Haven't seen it move in favor of Los Angeles in any capacity. They're the home favorite. But the Tennessee Titans, they have one of the best, if not the best running back in the league, Derrick Henry. The Chargers haven't been able to stop the run in, I don't know, maybe my entire lifetime. No, I'm just kidding. But probably in the last couple of years. And if you're going to get a good running back that can keep time of possession in the Titans' hands, keep this game close on the road. I liked it in a teaser spot. I also really like it to just take the points. I just really like that the Titans, even though their passing defense is horrendous and the Chargers could take advantage of that, and you could bet the Chargers team total over in the first half as well. But the Titans, in taking the points to keep this one close on the road against a really bad run defense of the Los Angeles Chargers up against Derrick Henry, I still like taking the points here with the road dog.
Listen, if there's one thing I've learned in my lifetime is that right at the moment you want to believe in the Chargers again, you want to trust the Chargers, that is when they're absolutely going to break your heart. So I like you taking the 3 points with the Titans here because, look, it's like the real-life matchup is actually very, like it's personified by these two coaches, right? Like Brandon Staley seems like a smart guy. He's got all these great words at press conferences, but then a big old guy like Mike Vrabel's just going to come and stuff him in the locker, right? Like, so I feel like that it makes complete sense. Yeah, it makes complete sense
Right,
with these two teams.
You're kind of taking, even though the Chargers, and I do think this could be a high-scoring game, I think the Chargers are going to have a high-scoring first half with all of the Chargers' weapons back offensively. The Titans' pass defense is bad, but their run defense isn't as bad, so you're taking our coworker Austin Eckler out of the run game. Yeah, he could join the passing game, but who's going to get the ball more if you're able to run the football down the field? It's going to be the Titans for time of possession with Derrick Henry. Listen, I don't need the Titans to win the game outright. I don't even care if this is a low-scoring game. I just need the Titans to keep it close within field goals, and between both these teams having their own issues throughout the year, I don't think that the Chargers are that much better than the Tennessee Titans. Both these teams have a really good shot of winning this game, but it's going to be close.
Austin will be so thrilled when he has to catch 13 passes again. He'll be so thrilled to talk about that this week. It's absolutely love it. Well, we're always thrilled whenever we can be joined by you, Ariel, so appreciate you coming on here. Love all the action this week. You people out there, new users. Yeah, I know there's some new users out there at BetMGM can take advantage of a special offer this Sunday. Bet $10 on any game. Yeah, any game. And you can win $200. Sign up today at betmgm.com/YahooVIP.
Oh, Tank, did Ariel just call that man a fantasy god? Did I misinterpret that?
Yeah, you
Is
heard that
what
right.
really happened?
You heard that right.
Okay. Fantasy god isn't joining us for this segment. It's just me and you, and we're gonna take a few questions from the people.
You catch strays, he catches praise. Yeah, it's weird out there.
How about it? It's wild. Tough scene for me. Well, again, make your pick time here. We're just going to take a handful of Twitter questions and help people with their messiest sit-start decisions. So let's start with one from Andrew here. Andrew is asking, okay, we got to pick two. It's Jerry Jeudy coming off a monster game, Christian Watson coming off a series of monster games, Isaiah Pacheco, or Garrett Wilson. Tank, who are you going with here?
See, I like how you said that Christian Watson coming off a series of explosive games, so I really like that play with Aaron Rodgers playing in prime time too. I think they're going to try to continue to get him off, and there's no way I'm getting away from Isaiah Pacheco in the best matchup that he'll have all year. If he's going to have a breakout game, it's going to be it today against the Houston Texans, so give me those two.
Yeah, I'm with you on this. I think you nailed it. I would have gone Garrett Wilson had Mike White been at the controls of that offense, but
yeah.
Cannot do it. Yep.
It's a thing.
Let's take one more here from Mr. Wonder Waffle Sr. Not to be confused with Mr. Wonder Waffle Jr. Senior is asking, need one wide receiver and one flex from the following. It's Mike Evans, Drake London, Rex Burkhead filling in for Dameon Pierce, or Leonard Fournette. These are some sketchy names. I'm going to go Mike Evans. I know he hasn't produced for you. He's actually, on the season, Mike Evans has the most fantasy points lost to like PI flags, holding flags, and other nonsense. But I'm going with him here. I think the Bucs are going to have to throw the ball like 45 or 50 times, and there's just no way that he doesn't get some work there. I'm not touching either of the running backs here, actually. I'm going to go with Drake London and Mike Evans. Tank, do you agree?
Yeah, this is a Spider-Man meme with both of those guys pointing at each other because they're basically the same cat, I think. So hopefully that Drake London prop comes to fruition in that matchup against the New Orleans Saints. But yeah, Mike Evans, I mean, he's been tortured, dropping the deep ball in Carolina, having the long touchdown call back against San Francisco last week. I think that Joe Burrow and that Cincinnati Bengals offense is going to try to step on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers' throat today. So yeah, Brady's going to probably have to throw the ball around a lot.
All right, we're going to take more of your questions later in the show. Right now, let's send it to Matt for some last-minute flyers.
If you backed into the fantasy football postseason, you don't have this great roster, you need a little help, but you also want to be able to hold your head high and have some dignity and not play guys from the Texans, for God's sake, like these other two lunatics I'm on the show with here. These are some guys you could potentially consider, starting with Jahan Dotson, Washington Commanders rookie wide receiver, a guy I'm a big fan of. Really like the way he played in Week 13, where we saw him running route on 89% of the dropbacks, got a season-high 9 targets, and got what should have been, unfortunately it was not because the game ended in a damn tie, should have been the game-winning touchdown. He played 32% of his snaps in the slot. I love to see that. I think he can make some big plays out of the slot, got 32 yards on 3 catches as a slot receiver. And again, all of this is notable, this Week 13 stuff, because he was playing the very same team that he'll be playing again this week in a nice little scheduling quirk in the New York Giants, who, like I said earlier, they were living by the sword earlier, now they're dying by the sword earlier as a man coverage heavy team. Jahan Dotson can beat that man coverage down the field. I think he's a nice sleeper this week. This one, I can't say it as excitedly as I wanted to. I can't put my full chest into recommending Elijah Moore this week, but I'll still tepidly suggest Elijah Moore, even with Zach Wilson back. I mean, my God. Listen, but here's the deal, though. Elijah Moore has run a route on 83% of the dropbacks the last 2 games. Let me tell you what, if you're an Elijah Moore fan like I am, you're just happy he's out there running route with the first-team offense, okay? That's what matters here. That's great to see. But if you want him for fantasy this week, you can take solace in the fact he had 16 targets the last 2 games, no Corey Davis this week. And the Detroit Lions, while they have solved their run defense statistically, they've not so much solved that pass defense. Again, you got to be pretty desperate to play Elijah Moore, but I do think the stats back this up for you. And again, I think this is a very, very talented player who just needs to be unlocked. We're going to unlock a really fun matchup between 2 running backs in Austin Eckler and Derrick Henry in a very, very big AFC playoff picture matchup. The Chargers can jump their playoff odds if they get this win. Let's hear what Austin had to say when comparing himself to the great Derrick Henry.
Absolutely different play style, different type of body. I'm probably the smallest starting running back in the league. He's definitely the biggest starting running back in the league.
I think he takes the cake, at least from a height perspective.
Yeah, for sure. What's so crazy about Derrick, he just makes it look so easy. Like, he looks like he's just striding it out there, but he's out running dudes, man. It's those long strides that get going, and then he just stiff arming, running through D-line. This is something that I don't have in my game, just from a physics standpoint. I watched this dude get around the corner, stiff arm a D lineman, right, and then continue to get around the corner and get up the field. It's like, yeah, see, if I try to stiff arm him, I got about 8 inches that I'm not getting there, and so the D-line's just gonna grab me and sling me to the ground. So it's a different type of play style that you'll see from us going against each other this Sunday, but still going to be a great battle. I'll do my work catching the ball as well as running, and we'll see if our defense can put another stop together of this guy.
You want your sports news in more than just a few characters? With the help of a bunch of different characters?
You play better than me, I'll respect this shit like you.
He beat us, yes. I'm not a ball player. Prince had hops.
Hosted by everyone's favorite character.
Only time will tell if that's a lie or a big ass lie.
You're Calais Campbell's brother, so Calais got the most sacks that he has is on me.
Give us 2 minutes and we'll give you The Rush. Weekday mornings on Yahoo Sports.
Welcome to Mad Bets, everyone. I am Minty Beth alongside Jared Quay and Pam Maldonado. I'm Ariel Epstein.
We've got a big Sunday night football game.
It's time for some Monday Night Football. Jared, let's kick things off with you. What's your best bet this week?
Oh, I love my bet with 5-star confidence.
Ariel, you can call it a homer pick if you want. It's not.
By the way, that probably will be in Prop Queen coming up on Sunday.
I'm gonna be busting these babies out this weekend.
Woo! You did that with your winning bets, huh? You've been on fire. That's what you're buying with your winnings?
Oh man, I love it.
All right, just moments away from kickoff, so let's get to as many social media questions as we can. We're going to start with Billy Bob. Billy Bob is asking, Ramondre Stevenson or DeAndre Hopkins? Of course, we don't have total clarity on whether Ramondre is actually going to be able to go. Tank, would you actually start Ramondre here?
I don't think I would, actually. I mean, I think the thing that gets me is that he wasn't able to finish the game last week. And that's why I'm a little bit alarmed. And so I'll probably rather go with DeAndre Hopkins. I know he has Colt McCoy throwing the ball. I know they have to go against that Denver secondary. But at least we have some certainty about his health. And I think that's the most important thing where you want to make sure you can maximize your value in the fantasy playoffs.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I'm actually probably going to bench Ramondre Stevenson in a couple of spots because we just don't know if he's going to be able to get through this thing. Let's take one here from Faramir asking, it's full PPR, Chris Godwin, David Montgomery, or Deontay Foreman. Matt, who are you going with?
I'm just happy to see Faramir found himself a good life after the battle for Middle Earth. That's good stuff. Good to see from him. What a dork. No, I think that I think Chris Godwin is like your safe play here, right in PPR. You know he's going to get those little screen passes, those little layup slot targets, stuff like that. But I kind of feel like I'd go Deontay Foreman. Like, we know the Carolina Panthers are trying to run the hell out of the ball right now. Steve Wilkes and the boys are doing a great job of it. Man, I feel like I would go Deontay Foreman, but I will admit to you, Faramir, that your safe play here is Chris Godwin because of those low ADOT targets that he gets.
Yeah, I didn't understand the fantasy god thing at first, but now that you're dropping like Tolkien references in here, okay, I get it.
Yeah. God. Now it all makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it was a compliment. I don't think it was a compliment.
I misunderstood it first, took it as a compliment. Apparently, no, maybe not so much. Let's take one here from Susie. Susie is asking Christian Watson, who just relentlessly scores touchdowns, Juju Smith-Schuster, or Travis Etienne. That's 4 question marks there. I get it. Tough to start Travis Etienne coming off some really rough starts, right? Like he had the ankle injury a few weeks ago. He's come back and struggled a bit, but this matchup should be as friendly as it gets against Dallas. They've been very generous to opposing running backs. However, my worry with Etienne is if the score gets out of hand at all, they don't throw to him. That's not the way it was supposed to go down with Travis Etienne, but they just simply don't throw to him. He never sees more than 3 targets per game. So I'm actually going to go Christian Watson here. You can't keep the man out of the end zone, and he's like the guy that Aaron Rodgers just looks for when a play breaks down. So for me, this one is Watson. Let's see if we can take one more from Johnny Aces. Johnny is asking, Jerick McKinnon, Jamal Williams, another guy who never stopped scoring, or DJ Chark. Tank, I'm going to send this one to you.
Man, you know, you give me the layup at the very end, and you know I can't go against my cousin, so I'm going to go Jamal Williams. I understand that Jerick McKinnon has that really great matchup against the Houston Texans, but it's not like Kansas City going to have to be throwing the ball all around the yard. They should be playing with a comfortable lead early, which means that Isaiah Pacheco should get a lot of volume and just hammer it home for the Kansas City Chiefs. So, yeah, that's why I would go with my cousin, Jamal Williams, going up against those Jets.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Jamal there as well. McKinnon, of course, had that freakish, miraculous touchdown for Patrick Mahomes last week, but I agree with you. It's going to be an Isaiah Pacheco week. All right, that is going to do it for this edition of Fantasy Football Live. Don't forget, we're moving to prime time for the rest of the season. Tune in this Thursday for our holiday and fantasy semifinal edition at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. Plus, keep up with all our daily content, podcast, and of course, updated player rankings at Yahoo Fantasy. Good luck to all your fantasy teams this week. The road to the championship is here. We will see you on Thursday.